Knowing your role plays an important function in making or implementing a plan, especially pastoral plan. This is your Kuya Mel, continuing with our pastoral planning workshop with a Jungian approach. So, what role do you play in your life? What drives you playing this role? As a sociologist, I observe that we do one or more roles called social roles. These roles we play are driven by two poles. One is social pressure and the other end is personal desire or ambitions. In analytical psychology, they call this the persona, the mask we wear in various social situations or functions, such as being a parent, husband, or a wife, or being one practicing a profession, a doctor, lawyer, teacher, pastor, or ministers. There are roles we are obliged to take because of tradition or social expectations. These are roles driven by social pressures, varying from one culture or society to another. Just for example, parents' role in managing their children's future marriage. In modern society, where personal freedom is the norm, it is an individual's sole concern. But in society with strong cultural pressure, like India, it's the parents' choice. Rigid to us, yeah. However rigid the culture may be, the individual will struggle, and some fell to the trap, but some fought back. Let me illustrate this with stories from some of my favorite saints. Since we are doing pastoral plan, it is better to know how pastors before us struggled. Augustine of Hippo, who lived in the 3rd century in the Roman Empire, he was raised in an upper-class family, his mother a devoted Christian, but despite his mother's piety, Augustine, like his father, was drawn towards approval of his peers. Most were hedonists, characteristics of young people of those times, boasting of their sexual exploits. Wearing a hedonist mask, his pride boosted with his expertise in rhetorics and poetry, which was a highly esteemed profession at the time. Later, he became a successful lawyer. In his writings, The Confession, Augustine disclosed his heartaches and how his experiences made him lose sensitivity to pain. There was even a movie portraying Augustine as a narcissist who lacks empathy towards his common law wife, which led her to leave him after 11 years being together and leaving his son to him. The death of his son was a turning point in Augustine's life, a cathartic event. At age 31, he was converted to Christianity after hearing a word in a child's voice, asking him to read a passage from the letter of Paul to the Romans. Here it goes like this. He read from the Romans chapter 13 verses 13 to 14. Not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. After that encounter with a child's voice, his life changed. How about this person who lives in the 13th century, Francis of Assisi? Born of a noble merchant family, he was expected to follow the steps of his successful merchant father. He was the heir to their flourishing silk trade. His father honed him to be his heir. He grew up with flamboyant youthful life, young, handsome, lavished himself in baneful pageantry, fine clothing, and pleasures. He had a carefree youth life. Then war interrupted his easygoing life. Enlisted to fight, got caught, and became captive. He got sick. This made him rethink and reevaluate his life. Then he had a vision. He almost gave away all his wealth, their family's merchandises, to the poor. And this angered his father and disowned him. He unrobed himself in public and accepted his father's wrath. Not feeling abandoned though, but nonchalant, I guess. He romanticized poverty. He embraced simplicity, an embrace of poverty that brings him wholeness. His friends thought he was losing his mind, but he kept ahead, happy in his voluntary embrace of simplicity, which he calls Sister Poverty. How about this man of the 15th century, Ignatius of Loyola, raised from a nobility marked with years of political fight and struggle, a clan of diplomats, warriors, and soldiers. Young at 17, joined the army. He participated in many battles without injury. He was vain, a fancy dresser, a good dancer, yet womanizer and sensitive to insult. In his early 30s, he got injured in a battle. His right leg fractured. He went through surgery, but the operation left his right leg shorter than the other. He would limp for the rest of his life. His military career over. While recovering in the hospital, he experienced a vision. An image in the air comes to him, providing him consolation. It has a shape of a serpent. Gazing at the object, he felt delighted and consoled. But when it disappears, he became disconsolate. He interpreted the vision as diabolical in nature. When he recovered, he accepted that his military career is over. He focused himself in studying. This time, he studied theology. Why do I choose three saints as an example? Early in life, they have created a persona, a mask with social roles expected of them. This came from how they were brought up, influenced by the prevailing culture from those times. Notice the similarities in the lives of these three saints before having a vision. The three had a vainful life. After the vision, conversion. Conversion is just an interpretation from a point of view of pious Christians, but using psychology, what brings the change of heart? Common to these three is a vision. The vision is a symbol that gives consolation, to make them rethink, to think, to resolve a dilemma that they were experiencing. And this follows a decision. And this decision, we say, is conversion, a change in the persona. From a proud orator to an eloquent bishop, Augustine. From a gay young lad to a pious friar, Francis. From a cavalier to a preacher, Ignatius. If you look at their stories, the struggle behind the journey was marked with self-reflection, ending up in a self-transformation that led to a movement of reforms. Harnessing the gift they already had, Augustine uses his skills in rhetorics to convey the message of salvation to his people, using his experience as an example. With all the shadows he knows, he expressed this in his confession. Francis' gaiety and zest in life brings hope to rebuild a church in decay by embracing simplicity and service to the poorest of the poor, because at the time the church was so pompous. Ignatius' prowess in wars, though handicapped by the battles he fought, used his courage, his bravery in pioneering into missions at a time when few clerical orders would do it. What is my point here? The reason why they are saints, they were brave enough to defy the norms of their times. At times when the norms was to follow the herd, they had the courage not just to oppose what was normative during their time. They had the courage to confront the struggles of the spirit within. Knowing or not, they were able to confront their shadow. No matter how rigid the mask is, the shadow will do its best to challenge it, until we are able to adjust and make the mask we wear comfortable. This mask from one extreme is shaped by social or cultural expectations. On the other extreme, by personal desires or ambitions. It is a struggle to balance the two. Succumb to social pressures will lead to unhappy life. Soon this will lead to rebellion or a projection of your real desire. If purely motivated by personal desires, one could suffer being alienated from society or even loss of financial benefits. Balance the two and be mindful, like how mindful Francis was. He knows the consequences. The consequences that he will lose a lot of things, his family, his family's approval, the admiration, the wealth, the prestige. But Francis was driven by a personal desire. Personal, but profoundly spiritual. But he was fully aware of what he wants, knowing the consequences and embrace this. That makes him fully whole and at peace with himself. How comfortable are you with the mask you wear? For those who sign up for this class on pastoral planning, set your appointment with me. I would like you to continue doing your journal, especially taking notes on your dreams. Through our dreams, the shadow appears to us in symbols. Let us learn how to decipher the meaning of these symbols and the message they wish to convey. Remember that the shadow is that force within you, that energy within you that you are not conscious of. You are not conscious of that. A reaction within you on how you perform your roles, how you wear your mask. Let's train our intuition to listen to this repressed or suppressed energy within. Then find ways to give it a creative expression.